Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer here. And tonight, I want to talk to you a little bit about a little medical procedure, or I should say, program that was introduced in 1903 that became popular around the 1970s and how it relates to necromancy. Okay. In this case, we're talking about thanatology. Okay. Thanatology is better yet known as the study of death. Okay. And the losses that are brought about it. Now, what is this study? And how does it apply to the art of dying? The Tibetan Book of the Dead suggests that there are multiple different degrees or levels of the person's expulsion from the vessel. Others refer to the procedure as evolution, the evolving of the spirit, the soul. But a lot of topics surrounding necromancy really doesn't delve into the art of dying in itself. I mean, let's face it, you're dealing with communities, you're dealing with family members, and that's not even including the terminally ill individual who's in the process of perishing. So, what is thanatology and why is it related to necromancy? Why don't we get into it? I'm not done with my study into thanatology, but I am going to reveal a little bit about what I've researched so far because of the fact that it is very, very fascinating. And I believe that it will benefit those of you who want to evolve as necromancers, as practitioners of things like blood sorcery and ritualized ceremonial practitioners of, like, say, Satanism or witchcraft, shamanism, even. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're into voodoo, it doesn't matter if you're into Santeria, Pedro Monte or Mayumbi, Kimbiza, Brujeria, whatever. It doesn't matter. This practice applies in just about every single religious perspective, not just Christianity. And yes, you can find necromancy in the Bible. Okay. So, anyways, this study focuses upon the mechanisms and forensic aspects revolving around the bodily changes as the body dies. Okay? Such as how should I say this? The cause and effect, if you wish. Okay? If you have brain cancer, for an example, it's literally shutting down and killing off your brain cells. If you have your brain shut down, everything else shuts down. So it's like a step-by-step procedure of you dying. Okay? It's the same thing if you have, let's say, for an example, cardiac arrest, a heart attack, perhaps even a stroke, because it's dealing with the cardiovascular and muscle aspects of the body. Those of you who have hit your funny bone, it's not very funny, is it? But yet you feel that tingling process all the way up into your fingers. Okay? Think about that for just a moment. It it radiates all the way up into your fingertips. Now imagine the step-by-step process of your life force becoming extinguished as you're dying, as you're heading towards that final farewell, as your body shuts down within a postmodern period of time. Thanatology is from the Greek language. In Greek mythology, you have Thanatos, okay? This personification is of death, okay? We all know this Greek legend because those of you who are into modern marvels know that Thanos wipes out half the universe because of his little mission, right? Well, in Greek mythology, he is death. He is the personification of death, okay? Dying. And what's interesting here is that ology is the suffix from the English variation and is derived from the Greek logia, okay, Logia, meaning speak or speaking. Now, you remember what I said at the beginning of this, 1903. What if I told you that a Russian scientist named Eli Mechnikov established a process called, which is a medical term, which I'm probably going to butcher here, by the way. It's a very long word. Phagocatosis, based off microbiology. Okay. And what this is it's referred to as solid particles. Okay. To which the internal counterpart known as phagosome. Phagosome. Okay. That's Phagosome. Okay. Now, here, we're literally seeing how he took something and created it because it was time for the changing of the guard, so to speak. Nobody took the time in this era to understand the process of dying until he did. And it took like, I want to say it was like 40, 45 years before it even became popular. He basically focused his attention on two aspects: thanatology and gerontology. Okay. Now, around the 1970s, like I said, this became known as dying with dignity. Okay. Dying with dignity. Okay. Now, according to the this aspect, thanatology really became popular around this time because of the fact that you just had World War II. You had the Cold War. You're getting into what is known as Vietnam, right? The Vietnamese War. And so people really are focusing and trying to come to terms with the loss of so many lives over this 45-year span. I mean, you're talking World War One, World War Two, the Cold War, you know, getting into Vietnam. So there's a lot of people that have perished here. Okay. So you got so many people completely confused, baffled. They're dealing with emotional and psychological aspects. So why was it so hard for them to accept this aspect, this one little program, okay, to identify the causes of death. Well, according to the World Health Organization, thanatology has little to no relations with what is called the palliative care, okay? Such as, say, let's go with CNA work, okay? Dealing with hospice and stuff like that, because their job is to comfort the living, okay? They're there to take care of the family member so the family doesn't have to work with it. They don't have to worry about it and stress over it. Not just keeping the person comfortable, changed, and clean, and all that stuff. But even though you're dealing with emotional, you're dealing with family, and you're dealing with communities who have lost a bunch of people, not just an individual. Thanatology has more in common with psychological. Psychological, okay? And the reason for this is the psychological aspects is more like, how should I say this? It's more dealing with the living, you know, the meaning of life, so to speak. Life has become more meaningful to most people, whereas few seek only death. Necromancers don't just study death. We don't just practice the art of death through rejuvenation or conjuration. It's more of understanding the process of death, getting to know death, communing with the spirits. Shamans, such as the black or the dark shamans, utilize chemical alteration type drugs that will create a hallucination, or that of, say, for an example, herbs to help them relax and to bring them close to death. Necromancers do the exact same thing with certain concoctions, but thanatology is more direct. It's very direct, and it's focused on death, the art of dying, the process of dying. Today, the medical community has all kinds of programs directed specifically for thanatology. You have programs, you have courses that you can take. You've got not just basic, CNA type courses that you'd find at, like, say, Job Corps. You have minister schooling, you have law enforcement, you have medical training programs that all deal with death. And just think about this for just a moment. And I want you to really think and concentrate on this. Thanatology plays into the work of a coroner, the embalmer, the funeral home directors, the grave diggers, the law enforcement practices of criminal analysis, ministry through counseling, and funerary rites. And this literally befalls under what is known as forensic science. Out of all the websites I've studied so far, just on thanatology, going into the medical books, that's sitting on my shelves, trying to understand what this is. It doesn't just play into blood sorcery and necromancy. It has a wide range of applications. So this Russian scientist hit that proverbial nail on the head when he made it a part of science, when he made it a part of the medical procedures. Even though a lot of this stuff has been around, such as electrocution, freezing ice, dealing with certain, well, let's just call them baneful procedures that deal with drilling and opening the skull and alteration of the mind, to basic operations, all deal with thanatology on some level. It's very fascinating to delve into this type of study. Because when people think necromancy, they picture things like Shao Kahn out of Mortal Kombat. They picture something out of a zombie movie like Haitian voodoo, like something out of voodooism, starring, say, Charisma Carpenter, or, something out of, let's go with The House of Frankenstein, one of the best overall TV movies of the 1990s. Okay? You see what I mean? Pop culture has a certain image. It's not just religions that see it as death and dying. You're already condemned, you're already contaminated, so you might as well be part of death. Necromancy is the first of the 7 forbidden arts. Why? Why is it so feared? Why is it so shunned? Well, we're breaking it down for you. I am bringing you my own research into necromancy. I've been studying this now for the better part of a year. It's taken me into multiple different religions. It's taken me into multiple different regions of the world. Different types of mythological creatures, entities that have literally outstanding and magnificent capabilities, such as, for an example, the Slavic necromancer known as the Immortal, okay, known as Kakashi, okay. Supposedly, the myth goes that when he became an immortal and he had mastered phylacteries and all his gifts and all this stuff, and he rose into godhood, he removed his immortal heart so that he could not be killed. You can look that one up for yourself on Google. Magnificent story. Hell, there's even YouTube videos about the guy. Okay? That surprised the hell out of me. But still, it's there. Pop culture, mythology, history, necromancy has been a huge part in the development of so many modern day traditions. And yet its outlook, its considered illegal in a lot of cases because it's associated with a narrow mindedness through religious discrimination. And when you come at it from a legal perspective, I find it interesting. I was talking to my better half about this earlier, is that you have so many different legal laws, penal codes here in the US to protect a corpse, a cadaver. And yet, two things you see constantly. Well, one, not so much, is that they literally will bleach and dip the cadaver into acid to strip away the bacteria, the skin, the muscles, the hair, you name it, to have a bleach white skeleton figure for medical use and study. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have companies out there that are capable of selling you both human and animal bones legally. Some of them are even imported from other countries through the internet. But here's the kicker. Even with all those legal penal codes that I mentioned, cannibalism is still legal in the US. Figure that one out. I had a friend of mine that lives in the South that actually brought that one to my attention. That was funny as all hell when I found that one out. So to see where I am now studying necromancy in all its levels, not just its mythology, its religious perspectives, its medical uses, you know, getting into psychological and different separations within these processes. Thanatology is even different from necrology, which is basically dealing with the obituaries and the notifications and all that stuff. And I'll get to that stuff down the road. But because there's so much that goes into this, I want to bring it to you in layers. So right now, this is probably going to be just part one of Thanatology because there's still so much that I got to go through and research and take notes into and all that stuff. So with that said, I hope that this has been intellectual. I hope it's been inspiring, enlightening. And I hope you go out and actually get a medical book and study this, because thanatology is a fascinating study of the human body and the condition of the art of dying. Go into, say for an example, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Okay? Go into the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Get into mythology. Get into the different cults. Get into the pantheons, like Anubis, for an example. He's the embalmer. He's the protector of the grave. He's the guardian of the cemetery. Okay? But he's viewed as a god of the underworld with the head of a jackal standing on a platform in front of a big spiraling vortex that changes depending on if you're going up or down. All right. So with that said, this is where I'm going to leave this one here until the next video. All right. So go out, do your research, look into these references that I suggested here, including Kakashi. Really help you get into that. The different entities of death. Break it down for yourselves. I guarantee it, if you're in the medical field, you'll find it very fascinating. And it may even prosper your own careers. All right. Have a good one.